my name is Gareth Pon. That is my name. You can find me anywhere under the same handle. I like to keep things consistent. This is also me. So for those of you who weren't at the Possible conference, I threw this image up and someone got a picture of it and people were like, oh, I hope we get to see that image again. So for those of you who missed it, this is me. My parents thought it would be really funny to put me in a dustbin and take a photo. Little did they know that that photo would be my first expression of fame. I ended up winning 5,000 Rand for that photo. Isn't that cool? So my whole life has been, I'm going to move this down a little because I feel like it's in my notes. So my whole life has been a culmination of all these random little moments. A little bit of an intro, so a bit of a backstory. My name is Gareth Pon. I'm a photographer, filmmaker, creative consultant. At the moment I have 265,000 followers on Instagram. I create content for brands, I consult with brands and agencies, and I also do influencer work, mainly internationally, but also locally in a sense. Ross did such a great intro. I'm half Mauritian, half Chinese, born in South Africa. I speak more Afrikaans than I do any Asian languages, so don't ask me that later. I've worked with brands like SAP Miller, Flying Fish, Nike Global, Samsung Mobile International. I was also named the brand ambassador for Samsung Digital Imaging last year, and I've been named Africa's top Instagrammer of 2014 and 2015. Okay, so now that I'm done patting my own back, let's get into the talk. So I want to talk to you guys today about how and why reality made me do it. So there's a beautiful tension within the creative mind. As creatives, we have to face reality sometimes. And the first thing I want to get into is knowledge. So when you leave school, you get faced with this big thing of like, what do I study, what do I do, how do I do it, where do I go? And knowledge is the first thing that you try and gain. You always try and get as much info into your mind as possible so you can do well in success. Is that correct? So a bit of a back history on me. Like I was mostly a straight A student in school. I walked away from a bursary halfway through fashion design. I started studying at a college called the Open Window. Who else is here? And I went there because I initially wanted to do animation. Halfway through that degree, I discovered my love for filmmaking, so I finished animation and started doing filmmaking. I then started taking photos purely to adjust and perfect my composition. And naturally, the technical aspects are pretty similar between film and photography, so I started doing photography more. And similarly, like the two have now developed to the point where I just love doing film and photography. So at that point in my life, I was like, what do I do between the two? And got me to the next point where I started getting pretty technical into what I was doing. I bought my first camera, which was a 5D Mark II. It was at the stage of all these really amazing videos that were coming out, made with the 5D Mark II. And I started shooting as much video and photos that I could to up that knowledge in my mind of how these things worked. Also began studying technical blogs, so I could gain as much knowledge as I can to get ahead of the crowd. And this understanding really made me feel very strong in what I did. So I could create content like this. The stuff you see here is all, it's obviously compiled in post, but all this is shot in camera. There's no special effects there of any sort. So I got pretty knowledgeable. I knew the ins and outs of a camera, and I did what I did best because I had this really strong technical knowledge. And then, somewhere along the lines, I sat down with my film mentor, and he said these words to me: Gareth, your technical abilities are really, really good. You know how to use a camera really well. You get the best exposure and shoot beautiful footage, but you're lacking the inspiration, the exploration and emotion that comes with any good film. So it really hurt to hear that, and at that stage I felt very vulnerable because I was priding myself in knowing all this technical knowledge and knowing how to do the perfect settings or set the perfect shutter speed. And I realized that my desire for technical perfection actually became the crutch to my creativity. And I realized that in order to be more creative, I had to see that technicality as a crutch and explore more of my freedom as a creative individual. So, if we all have the knowledge in the world at our fingertips right now, sometimes we risk forgetting that it's really about our hearts. And I don't know if you share those common characteristics, but as creatives I feel that we often get very nervous. We're like, wait, I need to study my butt out of this exam and get perfect settings on this, but then we forget to be creative, and we forget that we're humans. Ross said that in his talk at Possible, is that you're not a brand, you're a human, and part of that is knowing that there's a level of emotion that needs to come through, and there's no shortage of knowledge in this world, but there is a huge shortage of emotion. So I started dreaming about different things, and I've got this thing where I believe that everyone should have a ridiculous dream. This is my rocket. It also doubles up as my logo, and I love it so much that I have to touch it. Wow. Paper snap. But there's a bit of history behind this rocket. So I believe that everyone should have at least one ridiculous dream they believe can come true. Because once you believe in that possibility of that dream becoming a reality, then every other dream becomes possible. And my dream is to go to space. So I really encourage people to do that, because if you aren't dreaming, then you really forget about who you are as an individual. You don't have a direction, you don't know where you're going. But then it comes back to the other thing of, Gareth, what if you die in space? And I always say to people, what a way to go. You know? So there's always realities that you've got to face. There's always realities that always come up. And on the topic of death, let's talk about mortality. So along the way I found out that so much was going on, but the more I tried to control things, the more mistakes I made. And I started making more and more mistakes, and the more frustrated I actually got. So the best thing I realized that I could do is just embrace whatever happens and stop trying to control everything and just take it as it comes. Life is the culmination of all the right mistakes, but success is obtained by all the right reactions. So I think as individuals we get really nervous about making these mistakes and failing and getting into a place where we don't really know what to do next. And that really comes with reactions. Is the more you react, the better you react, that's where you really get placed in a point where you can be successful. I came across this blog by a creative director named Linz Redding. Some of you may know him. Do yourself a favor and Google this post. It's very humbling. It's a personal blog that he wrote just before he actually died of cancer. And he basically gives perspective to the advertising industry, but also as creators in general. So I just want to read one passage from his blog, and he speaks about creators. The other consequence with the benefit of hindsight is that we became more conservative, less likely to take creative risks and rely on tried and trusted. The familiar is always going to research better than the truly novel, and the research was the new God. The trick to being truly creative, I've always maintained, is to be completely unself-conscious, to resist the urge to self-censor, to not give a shit what anybody thinks. That's why children are so good at it, and why people with Volkswagens, mortgages, personal equity plans, and matching Louis Vuitton luggages are not. So, I don't want to steal the steam from you guys reading the article, but it's the reason why I highlight this is that we also get really stuck into being creators. We get so involved to the point that we actually end up forgetting who we are as individuals. And as creators, we find very little to no time to honor our medium. So this is something that I went through probably around my first year out of college, where I was chasing as much work as I could. I was looking for anything from corporate work to weddings to whatever it is, and there's nothing wrong with doing any of that, but I got to a point where I had a bit of a nervous breakdown over a weekend. And I was sitting in my room and I was like, what has happened? I studied for 3 years at this varsity, amazing degree, and I got to a point where I wasn't loving what I was doing. And at that point, I realized that I wasn't honoring my medium. And what I mean by that, I studied film to create beautiful stories, but at the end of the day, all I was doing was creating these videos that didn't really hype emotion, they didn't create anything that got people excited. And at that point, I realized that as an individual, as a creative, you've got to honor your medium. You've got to take that and prize it again and put it in a place where actually there's a level of creativity that I need to do. And that really just gives you an excitement in that space. And when you honor that medium, you'll find that people start honoring you as an individual. And the reminder just came to me that sometimes being conscious, too conscious, can also cripple your creativity. So, I know this is getting very hectic and down, but it gets better, I'm sorry. That's why I dealt with mortality first. So the next thing is love. Who here is in love? I'm not putting my hand up. I want to show you a little clip from my favorite movie. Does anyone recognize this film?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you all for coming. Drive home safely, everyone. Thank you for coming.
It was on that night Carl met his destiny, and I met mine, almost. They say when you meet the love of your life, time stops. And that's true. What they don't tell you is that once time starts again, it moves extra fast to catch up.
Who knows what movie that is? Big Fish, yay. So I love that film so much, and I always get this comment where people are like, oh, that didn't happen to me when I fell in love, and it's usually because of that hashtag forever alone. So people fall in love in various different ways, but with my romantic heart, I'm like, I really want something like that to happen to me when I fall in love. And I started bringing that into a lot of how I create things, because I think as individuals we often forget to romance our own creativity. So at some point in my life I realized that I'd forgotten how to romance my own creativity. And there's something whimsical and free about discovering creativity all over again. My film mentor once said that his wish for love, I have to read this because it's very deep and I might misquote him. So my film mentor once said that his wish for love for his students is that we would find a partner who remains a mystery our entire lives, that each and every day is a discovery of something new and exciting that only makes you fall in love more. Isn't that cute? And I think that as creators we need to remember that romance can be taken beyond just our love lives, but also into our abilities, talents, and hopefully to the point where time stops. So I think as creators that we need to just be aware of that, is that we need to fall in love with our mediums. Our creative abilities sometimes just get forgotten in doing too much of it. And I like to believe that all the most beautiful moments in life are never planned, but rather made in the court of God, where everything we've learned, all the knowledge we've gained, and all the education we consumed pales in comparison to a simple second that ultimately becomes a memory. And I think that as we live, as we do creative things, that creativity is something that is only valuable if you allow it to happen. Which brings me to my next point, and the last thing I'll be just chatting about is the element of innocence. So, this is a photo of a boy that I took in Ghana. It was one of the first trips I ever did out of South Africa. It was a moment when I was editing this photo that I realized that there was a level of naivety and innocence. If you look in his eyes, there's no screen there. He's not trying to hide anything. And I found this fascinating. You see, I believe that when we are young and innocent, we are at our purest, our most creative, and most aware of the world and the surroundings. When we grow older, that innocence is often lost. We slowly see the world differently and get familiar and desensitized to that, which was once discoverable, intangible, and mysterious. I believe that creativity is in many ways returning to that innocence and being able to grasp its beauty and express it in different ways.
You know the thing about mortality? It's real. We live in a world where everything is done yesterday, and the things that make us feel alive just pass us by. The more responsible we get, the more we let go of the one thing that makes us alive. Our innocence. Take a step back and find purity, beauty. Become naive. Feel again. And appreciate not knowing, because that's when our mortality fades away and you find that creativity is found when we are wildly innocent.
I don't know what happens next. What happens next? Questions? Yes, back.
Do you ever in your wildest dreams expect that people would do a push-up contest to win
No. Yes, please. I think, if I'm honest, I've had many times where I wanted to give up. And I think that I've got a lot of really good friends around me who I'll chat to. And I'll be like, I'm not feeling great right now. I need to do something else and I need to stop doing this. And I remember one distinct moment where I got back from one of my trips and I was actually pretty jet lagged, but then the combination of coming back down to earth, I was sitting in my room and I didn't leave my room for 4 days. It was pretty heavy. And I think at that moment it was really just the friendships that I had that got me out of that place. So yeah, definitely, there's times that it's a common thing. I think as a creative person, you will have those times. But it's the people that you surround yourself with that will pull you through. Yeah. This is getting really heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you ever there's things that maybe no one really interested in what you have to say? Not personally, but I mean, I'm thinking about this stuff in my head now. It's basically. So what I'm wondering is like, how do you
What are many people give a shit?
How do you kind of qualify that, or how do you get over that maybe self-doubt or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think so. So for me, I think the self-doubt is something that I've really embraced. Like, whenever I put something else, I never try and have everyone love that piece of work. I think the greatest success is getting someone to actually hate something you put out. So as a filmmaker, especially, I remember my first ever crit session I had with one of my films, and I actually asked my film mentor that exact same question. I was like, what if nobody likes my film, or what if somebody thinks I'm a loser? And he said to me is that if you have a crowd of people and every single person hates that film, you still made a reaction in what they've watched. And at the end of the day, I think as creatives, we want to make people happy, but in the same breath, I think we should just want to make people react. Yeah, I think at an initial stage, in the first probably like two years or so of getting the following that I did, I felt a lot of pressure. I was like, I'm going to post this, and if it doesn't get as many likes, I'm going to delete the photo, and I'm going to do this. And I actually got to a point where I was posting content purely for likes and comments, and I realized that at that point, I wasn't actually doing anything for myself. And I always say to people now that if you're posting a photo purely for the likes and comments, then does your account actually belong to you anymore? So I think there's an element of risk there, definitely, like sort of links in. But I'm very selfish when it comes to my own content that I put out, because if I love it, then I'd rather put it out and get like less likes. It also helps to have your mom on Instagram, where she likes and comments everything. Yeah.
And I get very much in my head. Like, do you ever feel like that? And when you do feel like that, like, what do you do to get out of that mode?
Yeah. So I have that often. I think it's just the reality that we see something in our minds, but then we can't often create that. And I often just take a break. Like, obviously you can't take a break if you're shooting at an event or on set with like hundreds of thousands of rental equipment lying around, but I'll often just take a break. Sometimes it's like, okay, I need a 5-minute to go take a walk somewhere quickly, and I find that often clears my mind. But one thing I also realized is that I very often like shoot for the brief. So I was actually chatting to Alexi about this. The other day, and I think the biggest pressure that we put on ourselves is that we get commissioned to do an interview, like a corporate interview or something, but then we want to create a feature film, and we're like, oh, I can't get this shot, like there's no lens flare in the background, I'm not Peter Jackson, like I need to get this done. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to create this amazing piece of content that comes out, but in reality, we just need to shoot for the brief sometimes, and focus more of that creative energy into our own projects and personal projects. And the more I've done that, the more I've allowed myself to just explore that element of creativity more, and that actually empowers the more corporate and rigid stuff. There's a question there. So I've like had the privilege of being exposed to a lot of guys internationally in the same space as me, and I've seen how a lot of those guys, I'm talking friends of mine, have over 1 million followers on Instagram. They get like 40,000 likes on an image. It's just like huge numbers, right? And I've realized one thing, that this sort of like branches into the influencer space, but also the creative element also comes in, is that within the influencer space specifically, a lot of guys they base a lot of their success on the amount of likes they get, the influence, the numbers, the followers, whatever. And I always say to people that you can't base your success on that, because influence is temporary and influence is only numbers. And the moment you base all your success and your abilities on those numbers, you're actually in a very risky place. So that's on the elements of influence. On the elements of creativity is that I've always, whenever I speak with clients, I've always pitched myself in as a creative filmmaker, photographer, consultant who so happens to have a big following. So there's that element of that, and I think that at the bare basis of who you are as an individual, you always need to have a skill that people go to you for. And if you have something that's really unique, you focus in on maybe a niche, that niche will always get you work no matter what app comes out, or if Snapchat gets more popular, or whatever it is. And that's really something that I've learned from a lot of people who mentored me. They've seen me grow from one follower to what I have now, and every step along the way they're like, don't let the numbers get you, don't let the numbers get you, because I think I've got a lot of very good friends who base their success on their numbers, and I've seen a lot of them get less jobs lately, and like I said, it's just temporary. So the guys that are doing really well are those people who have a skill and have something that makes them different outside of the influence. When was the last time I was in love? I think it was like 20 minutes ago when Ross did his intro. I don't know if it's a very hard question. I don't know, I can't say that I've ever truly been in love, because I think I would be married now.
It's a much lighter question.
Thanks.
What's the most exciting place that Instagram's taken you to?
Ooh, definitely Jordan. So I got invited to this trip by Jordan Tourism. We got to see Wadi Rum, I got to see Petra, I floated in the Dead Sea, and I got to travel with the most amazing friends from around the world. It was a 2-week trip, and every day there was about 4 hours of driving, so we covered all the best spots in Jordan. It was a trade exchange, so I didn't get paid for it, but the experience was well enough and amazing enough to just embrace that. Yeah. Hi. When you say great nerves, like just nervousness of...
Well, you've reached success. There are the nerves that come with that of that certain standard.
Sure. Well, I take a very different approach to it, because as successful as I have been, I feel that there's always a level of betterment that you always need to do as an individual. Like, you should never stop learning, because the moment you become a professional, you stop learning and you become a bit cocky. And I think that I'd always try and relearn, re-evolve, and venture into new things whenever I can. So Instagram could be obsolete in the next year or whatever, like hopefully not, but it's the reality of social media and all of that. And I think that in the process of reinventing yourself, it's something that I do very often. I often go through different themes and different things that I like to talk about and focus on. Sometimes I write more than I do film, sometimes I do films more than I do photography. And like I said, sort of in the talk, is that I love making mistakes. So in that process of discovery, I sort of forget the anxiousness. And when I do get anxious, I just cook because I like cooking. I get distracted. And I eat. Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah. So when I put my first photo up, I have no idea that I would be where I am today. It was honestly just another sort of avenue of creativity that I wanted to explore. I started using Instagram as a way to better my composition for videography, actually, for cinematography. Because I went to a workshop and the guy was saying, you guys as cinematographers should take more photos because the more you do photos, the better your eye gets. And that's actually the reason why I started using Instagram, was because I just wanted to better my composition and understand lighting better. And then the moment where I realized that it actually had international reach is that Instagram does this thing called weekend hashtag projects. I don't know if you guys know about it, but they threw out a theme called, it was something about like iconic buildings or something. And I was in Joburg and I posted this photo of, it's actually the first photo on my feed at the moment because I deleted a whole lot of photos which I shouldn't have done. And I posted that and they actually selected that photo that I posted of Joburg Town Hall for that competition. So at that moment I was like, wait, there's some dude in San Francisco who looks at my photo and said it was good enough to feature, so there must be something around this. And it's just a fun thing they do. There wasn't a prize or anything, but at that moment I think I picked up probably like 2,000 followers from that feature, which was really fun because at that stage, if Instagram posted about you, you picked up like tons of followers. And then I started taking it more seriously, and then that's when I started the Instagram community in South Africa. I contacted a whole bunch of friends around the country and started organizing Insta meets in different cities. And over one weekend we launched the Instagrams community, which links to a big international community. And it was just really an excuse of saying like, hey guys, we've got a beautiful country, let's try and rediscover it through photos. And through that photography and through those meetups, a lot of the people started realizing they could be creative and realizing they could take photos. I mean, we would get like real estate agents rocking up with their iPhones and they're like, oh, let's check this photo thing out. And people who would be in the city for the first time in their lives, and we're talking like numbers of like 25 people be in the city and never walked down like Bristol Street before, never seen Fundy Square. And that for me was the beauty of it, is that I believe that like Instagram is the one social media that the final goal is to always meet the person you follow. So, I mean, you can do that on Twitter, but like what you do, you talk about tweets and stuff. But with photography, it's a common passion, and you really, because photography is so personal, it's almost like you know the person before you meet them in person. So, and then at that stage, that's when Instagram started sort of taking note of all the activity happening in South Africa. And luckily enough, like the center of it was, my name often came up because I was organizing the meet. And then it sort of just snowballed from there. Blogs were doing features and talking about top Instagrams to follow around the world, and just kept going, yeah. One more. Can you all ask it at once?
With the theme of reality, 3D videos, do you see yourself doing 3D or virtual reality videos?
Like 360 video. So I'll do 360 video the moment we can experience it as a group. Because at the moment, the thing that bothers me the most is you have to have a phone in front of your face to be able to experience VR. I mean, you can fill a room with thousands of people and have them all sit on a chair next to each other, but until it gets like to Star Trek, then I'll start doing it. Cool.